Hello and welcome to part 5 of my How to Crochet series, front loops, back loops and tying off. In this tutorial I will not only show you how to work in front loops and back loops, but also the many different ways in which I've used them to help create my crochet patterns. You'll find in most patterns that they are abbreviated to FL, front loops, or BL, back loops. If it's FLO or BLO, then it means front loops only or back loops only. Simply put, the front loops are the closest to you and the back loops are the ones at the back. Just remember, as I mentioned in part 1, when working in the round, make sure you work clockwise around the edge. That way you can be sure before you proceed. So we're going to start off with the front loops, and it can be a bit tricky to insert your hook into the stitches. So you will see that I am making use of my hook to get up and under the stitch. You can put any stitch in the front loops or back loops, but I'm just using single crochets as an example. You'll notice after doing a row in front loops, your work will go off at a different angle to the original stitches, and this can be used to alter and change the shape to your work. And we can also use the back loops that are left over. With working in the back loops, it is very much the same, but it is a little bit easier to insert your hook in the stitches. Now I'll quickly show you how I have used front loops and back loops to my advantage. You'll see that I've used it to create a flare effect on a pair of trousers. So I started by working in the front loops to change the direction of the stitch, and please note that in doing so I created a row of back loops that I will come back to later. Having worked another row away from the foot, I then stitched 2 consecutive rows in back loops, changing the direction back towards the foot, and also creating the bottom of the trouser leg. After working another row in, we now return to the leftover back loops. Here I continue crocheting my rows, but I will also incorporate the back loops into my stitches. This helps create the flare effect whilst also fixing the work in place. Using the same pattern, I've used the same technique with the hat, using back loops to change direction and forming the brim of the hat, and then fixing the hat in place by stitching the leftover back loops to stop the hat coming adrift. Now that I have shown you how to use leftover back loops, I will now show you what you can do with leftover front loops. For my Halloween series, I made a clown, and for the hair I used leftover front loops to attach my chains to create a frizzy hair effect. As you can see, although very simple, using front loops and back loops gives a wide range of options for your creations. Now tying off your work is important, and there are many ways to do it and all very similar, but the main aim is to make sure your work won't unravel afterwards. So we're now going to make a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. We'll then cut our yarn, and then we're going to pull that yarn all the way through that chain. Okay, and as you can see, it leaves a nice tight stitch and it brings it back to the work. Okay, so for the second technique, we'll just finish that stitch. We'll then chain 1, pull that yarn all the way through. Okay, and as you can see, it has got a slight raise there, not like the slip stitch which brought it back into the row. However, we can just sew that back in to the rest of the work with our sewing needle. Okay, for the third technique, we're just going to complete the stitch, but instead of making a chain, we're just going to pull that yarn all the way through. It looks like it should unravel, but it doesn't. But if you aren't certain, then we'll just weave that end in with the sewing needle and tie it into our work. Okay, and they are your 3 techniques. I think there are many out there, but they're the 3 that I choose. And there you have part 5 of my How to Crochet series, and I really hope it gave you a better understanding of front loops and back loops and all the ways that they can help change and add to your projects. Part 6 is just around the corner with colour changing, and this is the simple and effective way of swapping between multiple yarns. So please subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified when it is released. And please do share with friends and family to anyone who is interested in starting a new hobby. It is for all ages and you're never too old to learn. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back here soon. Bye.